Yo, yo, this is Dan, uh, maintainer of Nativewind. Gonna be taking a bit of a more relaxed approach to today's stream. Just gonna post about it real quick on socials before jumping into things. So we got that. And now for the Nativewind account. There we go. Boom. All right. What's up, Beck? I know I installed the wall myself, I hired someone to install the wall panels, which was awful. I mean, it took a while for those wall panels, and what a way to learn that your wall is a bit curved is try installing some straight panels that need to be cut. But the lights I did myself, so I'm very angled down. Yeah. All right, Jeff, we can separately go into like how it should be or whatever, but just know I spent like 15 minutes before this just trying to get it right. There's also no curtain on the window. Um so you're just getting the full ass of the sunlight basically. And yeah, there's also a coffee table next to the chair that I'm super proud of, but like it's we'll make it into the next stream. The coffee table will be available only to ultra wide people. Not physically, monitor wise. Um so like I said, probably gonna take a bit more of like a chill, just kind of update structure to native wind stuff. It's going mental though. Kind of crazy. We're just about to hit 750,000 downloads per week, and Yatsik and I, who Yatsik is the guy behind Uniwind. Yatsik and I have this running bet about who's gonna have like the most amount of downloads or whatever. I mean, Uniwind is not going to be anywhere near Nativewind by app.js. That's the thing. So it's like if Yatsik is able to make it up to a certain amount of downloads per month, I think it's like 200,000. Then I have to buy him a beer. If, however, I through Nativewind am not able to achieve 1 million downloads a week by app.js, which is end of May, then I owe him a beer still. Any other condition, he owes me a beer. Personally, I think I'm in a pretty good spot here to be getting a free beer from Yatsik. And regardless, it'll be a good time. Uh, it was right around this time, like literally Yatsik approached me last year at app.js and was like, "Yo, like let's work on like Uniwind together." And so it's been really cool seeing that project come full circle, around such that we can have, a bet like this. If I can find the tweet, I'll pull it up or whatever, where we go into what the bets are, whatever. But it's not important. The point is, one of us is going to get a free beer, and I think it's going to be me, but we'll see. So yeah, we're just about to cross 750,000 downloads a week, which is awesome. Goal is 1 million by end of May. So in order to get to that, we have other goals. We want to be stable. Like I want to have the project be stable, more open source involvement. That's starting to happen more, which is great. And I think a huge way that this project gets to 1 million downloads a week is through LLM usage, which is obviously like super like how folks are going about doing stuff in React Native nowadays. And so, some news: we got accepted into the what is it? The Anthropic open source program. So they have been big shout out to Anthropic and Lydia Haley for being my understanding of what that program is like. They gave us 6 months of free Claude Max, right? So the entire suite of Anthropic's products, uh, which is their equivalent of ChatGPT, like the website, Claude Code, which is like their codex as like a desktop thing, and something else. I think like SDK usage or something. I don't know. I'm not using it. So what I am using though is Claude Code. Claude Code has been wild. It is a substantially, I don't know what people are saying about different models, but it's been incredible in just understanding um, intricacies, details, not only of existing code, but things that folks are suggesting, right? So using Claude Code, I'm able to really quickly boil down to what open source contributors, uh, what the idea is behind what they're suggesting, um, finding some, easy wins for the PR to make sure the code quality is there, that it's covered, there's a test suite or something they're introducing if that's relevant. Um, and obviously just making sure that like if something needs to be made in React Native CSS or exists there versus Nativewind itself, it's just been great. It's just been great for that kind of stuff. But as far as usage is concerned, you kind of have to think about Nativewind. There's like a couple of different people. There's me, the maintainer, right? So I need to triage issues. I need to review PRs. So there's stuff that LLMs can do there in the way of skills and assorted and markdown files that I use. There's also um, the contributors. They need their own kind of like skills and markdown files because frequently it's very likely they're also using an LLM and it might not be Claude. So, lastly, then you have the users, obviously, and you want those folks to have a really good experience, and that's its own form of skills and markdown files. So, this past week, since the last state of Nativewind, I've gone through and I've added uh, a multitude of different skills for Nativewind, which I'll post about probably on Twitter. But just to talk about them here, there is one for like migrating from version 4 of Nativewind to version 5. There is one for uh, what is it? I'll go into the markdown files first because I think those are actually more substantial. So if you're a contributor and you step in, you're like, I want to help, you don't have to prompt your LLM to be like, here's what it is. There's this version 4 and there's version 5. All of that context, all of how the project is architected and how it functions and all this noise is boiled down into these markdown files that it now exist. You'll see them under claude.md in here. I can even share my screen and show you. So boom, share screen. And then we want to share this one. Okay. So you'll see these like Claude MD files, development MD files. The Claude one is really just a wrapper around the development one. The development guide is like the meat and potatoes. So we're looking at the main branch of Nativewind right now. So when you know turn on your LLM basically to contribute to the project, it sees this MD file immediately, consumes it, and gets all of this context about this specific version of the project. This is a living document, so I'm like pretty frequently adding to it. Uh, but this has helped to just get a lot of the like annoying stuff that folks like struggle with a lot in contributing. This is going to help you plus your LLM go from, hey, there's this like change or bug that I want to resolve or include, suggest, all the way through to PR inside of a relatively short amount of time. And that wins brownie points for just kind of experience, right? Developer experience, if you run into any issue, but it also heavily lends to that like trust that you have in the project and the confidence that you yourself can have, you know, going at like, I can contribute to this. I can do this. This isn't out of my purview. So that's that's a big win for us, and this exists for every single like variant of the project. So you'll have like version 4 has its own, version 5 has its own, um, React Native CSS has its own. I think even the website has its own versions of these documents, and that's before you even get to the skills. Here's where you have like skill to add a test. Nativewind has a very robust test suite, and frequently, if you're making additions or editing things, it's not only important to create a test, but create a test that fits the structure of existing ones, right? We don't want to like deviate from that. Architecture, I believe this one goes into just the overall like how this project is structured, and what different parts of the repo correlate to whatever else. And this debug one is oriented more for users of Nativewind, right? So this is going to allow you to go through some quick, like clear things to resolve your issue. It's going to check certain files to make sure that, things that need to be there are there. Yeah. So again, this is also like a work in progress. I do want to pause here for anyone who is unclear on what skills are. I just learned this. I've been hearing about skills like all over the place. This stuff is insane. Previously, when I used LLMs, and this is all thanks to Claude's or like Anthropic's blog. So if you want videos or like more explanation, please dig in there. I might even butcher the explanation a little bit, but basically, um, I was using Cursor prior to using Claude Code to work on my our clients' projects, to work on open source stuff like Nativewind, and it's good. Not trying to knock that, but the thing that I kept running into, even with like OpenClaw, especially with OpenClaw, because I have that set up as well, is the context window would just sort of grow and grow and grow, right? And I had to manually manage new sessions, new threads, basically, to make sure that I wasn't like running up this huge bill, basically. And when you're dealing with a massive code base like native, or like the level of complexity and different variants like Nativewind, you find yourself or I found myself spending a lot of time explaining to the LLM, here's the version of this thing that we're working on. And that became especially problematic when I'd be trying to like context switch between fixing something in version 4 and then switching to like version 5, right? Because there's like, I'm trying to, address the hose at both ends. And that became such I don't know, like at least 30% of the time I was spending was just kind of re-explaining and resetting the context window. Having these skills in place makes it so that I don't have to preface each conversation with the LLM with, hey, Opus 4.6, here's what you're dealing with, right? Here's the context of like previous conversations. Skills do not add nearly as substantially to the context window um, as simply prompting does, because skills are loaded in like basically, I mean, as a single sentence description or name of what it is, what it's doing, right? In this case, add, test, architecture, debug. and it just says what it is and when it's to be used. And until that skill is actually invoked by the LLM, it isn't going to consume anything inside of these files, right? So it's not going to be aware of anything actually inside. It's not going to need to add that. Once you do actually go to, like, say, debug Nativewind, or you want to, your LLM's like, I need to revisit the architecture, that's when it's going to go into the files, into these folders, and it's going to like consume the relevant stuff. If there's this is the cool part, if there's a script in there, right? So a function you want to run with a, let's say, some input you provide and an output you expect, it doesn't add the script and it's running to the context window, right? It is only aware of the input and output, right? So it'll pass in the input, it'll just wait till it's done, get the output, and that's the only thing that becomes part of your session, your context window. And these sound like little things, but these little things combined and have ended up over the course of, I mean, maybe not so much in the past week because I've made the migration, but the week prior, I was spending so much time on these switches, and having to explain to the LLM what we're doing. So if you haven't looked into creating custom skills, or just consuming some ones that already exist, definitely recommend doing so. It's super, super helpful, um, especially when you're dealing with these like non-deterministic systems. So this is kind of what a skill can look like. There's a lot of guides on how to do it. I would recommend only getting them from trusted sources, because it can get very tricky when it's like not fully aware of what it's about to run. If you're pulling in like a skill from, you know, who the fuck knows, then like that could be a problem if you've hooked up your LLM to anything meaningful. So trusted sources only. And one last thing I'll say about Claude Code is it hooks into the browser. I spent a lot of time working with OpenClaw to get it to work with Chrome Relay, which allows it to like work with the browser, uh, kind of like almost like a Selenium type of thing, where it opens the browser and does things on your behalf. Claude Code just does an impeccable job of this. Really, really good like synergy between like a seamless experience between the Claude Code application and the browser. Like I'm using Chrome. I recently switched back from Safari. I don't know why I keep trying Safari, um, especially because Chrome now has the autofill for like codes texted to me. So rip Safari and long live Chrome again. Um, and who cares about Mozilla? Sorry, Jeff. Jeff works at Mozilla. Uh, on Firefox, on Android, which why? Um, so um, that being said, that's kind of like what I've done on the LLM side of things. There have been additions to like bug fixes and PR stuff. Um, I'm really happy to see. Let's just take a look at closed. It's going to be tricky because we kind of have to go across a couple of different versions, right? We'd have to go to the version 4 branch and see that. Uh, then we'd have to, or I guess, no, we would only have to go to React Native CSS and see that. But so there's a couple of things that have been the last week, have been added in the last week here. And then React Native CSS as well. Let's pop that open. In a world. There we go. Yeah, so if we go to pull requests closed, so a couple here, there's some open ones. There's a specific, so I want to shout out one dude, this guy. I don't know who this is. Yevgeny Katorio, legend, absolute legend. Just one of those first like champions of Nativewind open source contribution that I have seen, and like their contributions are this person's like so on top of it that the second I request something, within 24 hours, maybe 12, immediately that change is ready. Even if it's something as simple as a rebase, right? And that's what fuels me, right? All this stuff that I'm doing, all of this effort that I'm putting forth is I'm just trying to like make people like this able to and willing to put in the effort, because this stuff is not the easiest thing in the world. So Yevgeny has been doing a lot of stuff with respect to box shadow, because in the switch from version 4 to version 5, there's a switch in how shadows are handled basically, and it's been tripping people up left and right. So there's inevitably going to be some like kind of spots to fill out, and Yevgeny has just created the relevant stuff in React Native CSS and also in Nativewind itself. So the reason I haven't pushed out a version yet is because I just want to make sure that Yevgeny stuff makes it into this patch version. So right after this stream, I will be reviewing those PRs. I have like a quick errand to run, but I'll be reviewing those PRs. And once those are merged in and the tests are passing, I will be shipping a new patch version. That being said, as always, if you want to be using the latest and greatest from Nativewind and are not afraid of like being a little experimental with it, you can just get the nightly version, so like at nightly instead of at latest, and that of a nightlies basically occur as whenever there is a push to main, the collection of those things, like I think once a day, are deployed to nightly, to the nightly version. So if you like to live on the bleeding edge, and you want, some of these fixes are particularly huge pain points for you, I do try to ship a patch version no more than a week apart. So yeah, but if you need it sooner than that, then use the nightly version. Um, we are working our way through the pull requests and issues. Um, Pull requests on React Native CSS are basically under control. I fixed some of these like CI things. Like these aren't passing. I'm not terribly worried about it though. These were from before, and I think there's some just sort of rebase thing, and these two are from a past effort by Mark. I'm gonna jump back into these once I have a second, but all pretty like minor stuff here. A lot of them are just Yevgeny stuff. Again, huge shout out to Yevgeny. And so this should be down to about 6 or 7 PRs, most of which are dependabot things, by the end of today. At that point, jumping back into the issues, and the goal in general here is to just keep this under 10 at any point in time. Ideally, obviously 0, but that's, I mean, for any project that's utilized by an actual amount of people, that's really not like the thing to shoot for. I'm mostly on about like response times to issues, and getting better about that. The big win will be getting Nativewind under 10 issues, and that's just going to take like a couple weeks, I think, realistically. So we are getting closer and closer to a version. I've had a more increasing amount of folks reaching out saying how much they love the version 5 stuff. They are happy with the progress, and they prefer slow and steady to like any kind of like gap or whatever. But they've been enjoying using it despite it being in preview version. So really happy to hear that stuff. If you conversely have feedback on what could be better, please reach out on Twitter. However, I would totally hear that feedback, and I want this to be a really good experience. So I do want to shout out one more person, Tomino. If Twitter ever loads, because it is a thing that apparently exists in this state. Good God. Wow. Great job, Elon. So Tamino has just like some of the most beautiful things I have ever seen made with Nativewind. So he's here under Tamino Design. And he has these just like gorgeous things that he makes. Like, I mean, just look at it. Stunning. I just realized I wasn't showing you. So now I'm showing you. What's up, G? I'm assuming G is your first name and Penner is the last name. But yeah, I'm glad to be on here again. These we needed these back. So yeah, so back to Tamino. This dude, if I could get him to just run the Nativewind Twitter, I would, but he is currently preoccupied with another project. So if y'all want to be helpful, quick, at this, Tamino Design, and be like, yo, take over the Nativewind Twitter or whatever. Like, talk to Dan. Maybe we can get him to do it. So yeah, he just has this eye for design, and he cares about the experience. And he really shows off what people can do, whether with version 4 or version 5. So I've been just like amplifying his stuff as much as I can, and anything I can do to help folks like this. So if you have similar kind of stuff, just tag at Nativewind CSS. I'd love to take a look at it and maybe amplify it if it makes sense. Yeah, I also at some point have to make it around to launching that, what do you call it? The sponsorship program, but I just haven't gotten. I mean, there's so many changes to do basically that I haven't been getting around to that. But going back to the issues, I just want to like highlight some quick things. So a lot of CI stuff fixed, Claude Code stuff, some prettier stuff, Claude Code again. Yeah, so there were some crashes with set color scheme people pointed out. So, and especially on like the newer architecture. So those have been addressed. I might need to revisit the docs for that, but maybe not. I did see someone like surface something else about set color scheme. So I'll take a look at that today as well. Mikhail, as far as Nativewind supporting Tailwind animations, my understanding is that it already does inherently. That's actually one of the big things of version 5 is that, I mean, are you using version 5 or version 4? Because I think both support it, but version 4 has shallower support, I believe, for it. But version 5, which reflects Tailwind version 4, yeah, okay. So if you're using it in a production, okay, so if you're using version 4 of Nativewind in production and you want to be using that more advanced animations, give it a try. And if you're running into issues, just like hit me up on Twitter, basically, like DM me, and I'll see like what I think is the best path. But if it's just like a side project and you just kind of want to mess around and see what's possible, I'd recommend trying version 5 and trying some of those animations out. In a perfect world, something Mark and I talked about in the past, Mark Lawler, who's the author of the library, was standing up kind of like uh, a playground, right? A web playground where you could actually just like uh, see what the different animations look like. But it would effectively be like the equivalent of what Tailwind has. They have like a playground for like seeing what those animations are. So it translates just basically one to one. Um, but for the moment, you still have to kind of like spin up a new version 5 project and mess around with it yourself. But Mikhail, again, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or whatever with your attempts, and if that's anything less than intuitive for you to do, then let's figure out a way to make it more intuitive. But I appreciate you flagging that. So yeah, so then we had a couple type issues with both Nativewind and I think React Native CSS, which again there's Yevgeny again. Uh, just quickly threw in a support. It was just a simple, like basically like a grammatical, like a syntax error, basically. Nothing serious. So I think as far as the meat and potatoes of this next patch version, it's assuming we're not seeing stuff from the other. Yeah, so it's going to be the set color scheme stuff. It's going to be the shadow stuff. And whole mess of obviously LLM related stuff that you can use to help fix your problems. And then on the React Native CSS side, we're gonna see again the shadow stuff. We're gonna have better change logs now, which I'm really excited about. I got that in a couple days ago. We use, oh god, what is it called? Review it or something, or release it for releasing new versions, and it doesn't create a summary list like a change set PR would. And I was like, well, that's a bummer. I'd like people to be able to see what has changed since, between different versions. So I just made a configuration, and we should start seeing like generated change logs per version. So before you go to bump to the next version, you'll be able to see what's changed. But yeah, quality of life improvement. I like to see those things personally. So there's the type thing again, and yeah, everything else is largely like Dependabot stuff. The the PRs that will make it into this week's, or like even today's minor or patch release will be stuff pertaining to the shadow properties. So then I'll begin to move into the other stuff, and it looks like a lot of it's also Yevgeny, so we can coordinate on. I mean, it's probably pretty good. I'll usually have the LLM go through every single PR as a single pass and just immediately flag anything. And so I'll just like quickly like request those things. And then my process is like once the LLM has gone through, I'll actually go through both the like idea like behind the change, the actual diff itself, and making sure that like test coverage is there and all that kind of thing. So it still is getting like, we're not just like vibe coding Nativewind now. It's still getting that like attention, but in the interest of time, I want to try to surface as many uh quick things to request from people so that I can request those things before I go item by item uh, to review PRs. So that's been super helpful. If you're considering using LLMs for maintaining a project, that's worked for me really well. Highly recommend it. Um, yeah. Last week there were some changes to how text like alignment is handled, and there were some remaining merges in about how uh stuff between style and class name are sort of like smashed together to provide the finalized like what the component should have. This is like causing some issues for stuff like button in React Native, which just has like style properties that are like properties in React Native versus like actually defined as like within the styles object. So that was a last week thing. Um, yeah, so overall pretty good. I actually haven't checked discussions really at all. Oh, yeah, we do have a guy working on a monorepo for, so we already have the monorepo for version 4 with Next.js. Um, and he's working on the version 5 one. So for anyone interested in doing monorepo stuff with Expo and Next.js, that will be a really great resource, and I'll publish it on our website under our community resources. Uh, let's check the discussions for Nativewind itself. Yes, is the answer to this question, which I will go into. Yeah, so nothing really new here. If you are curious about progress at any given point in time, you can go to our projects here. I try to keep this pretty up to date. Under projects, you'll see roadmap. And so it'll show you what I'm working on. It's showing what's going in the next release. Um, I'm still adding to this list, obviously, like it's on a per item kind of thing. But yeah, so this is roughly maybe a couple days off sometimes of what I'm working on at any point in time. So yeah, this is where Nativewind is at. I think we're still on track for my original goal of like being able to release a stable version of version 5 of Nativewind by like mid of May. So if you're curious about trying that out for a project, that's where I would set your expectations. Um, as far as Mark coming back of post like being sick, still recovery mode. So I'm just kind of like checking in on him, and yeah, hopefully he gets better sooner rather than later. And we'll just kind of take it one step at a time until then. What else? Nativewind UI. So we've been seeing an uptick in folks getting Nativewind UI, which is cool. It's currently running version 4. Once I feel like probably in the next month and a half that Nativewind version 5 is like good to try on like a production thing, I'll probably make a preview version of like a Nativewind UI version 5 thing. Yeah, and at that point, like I want to see what the future of that product is like. I'm kind of skewing towards like it's an interesting dynamic, and please feel free again to like hit me up, either like start a thread about it on Twitter, or maybe a discussion and GitHub, or even DM me. But basically, um folks seem to like deterministic tools that I've made, like rn-new, rn.new, or Nativewind UI. But the reason they like it is because of the lack of deterministic output from like generative tools. So they'll go to like be like, oh, make this native or something, and then they say that once and it yields one output. They say it another time, it yields a different output. So being able to have a consistent kind of, uh, same input, same output is a big deal for those folks. And I generally want to agree, but there's so many things to build right now that it can be challenging to, keep up with maintaining things like template libraries. So part of me is like, I'm probably just going to find someone who is interested in maybe picking up some extra cash, uh and is cares about, ideally I'd find someone like Tamino to basically take over and lead Nativewind UI. um and it would still be like under Nativewind and we'd still be like heavily involved, but leading it while also running the consultancy, while also like doing this Nativewind stuff itself and just a handful of other stuff is it's rather challenging. There's nothing wrong with Nativewind UI. It works perfectly well. But I think some people would obviously love to see like more components. There was a really good idea the other day to have like maybe some Expo UI stuff be the underlying foundation of some of these components, which I still need to talk to Zach about. Zach works on it with me. Um, but yeah, so ultimately it's just kind of like being pulled in various different directions. So trying to navigate that. If you have any interest in working on this stuff, please feel free to reach out. Be happy to chat. So I think that pretty much wraps this week. Look forward to a new version, like I said today, new patch version of Nativewind and subsequently React Native CSS. Um, no necessary docs changes, and only minor test suite changes. Everything seems to still be passing. Robustness of stability is only improving week over week, right? So we have CI passing, we have the test passing. They're not going to catch everything, but they catch most things. And yeah, onwards and upwards to 1 million downloads a week. We're getting there. We're getting there by end of May. So I got to get that free beer from Yatsik. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. If you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter, and I'll catch you next week. See ya.